Hey, this is Yazuki Wolf, and I'm here to just try something a little bit new. Instead of having myself in front of the camera today, I'm going to be just showing you random video footage and photos and such of things I've seen around Japan, and maybe some of my own artwork and so forth. And then I'll just be talking casually over that. So a little bit slightly different approach, and you can let me know which approach you guys like. I don't know if y'all want to be able to see my face all the time or not, but I figured I could take this opportunity to just kind of show you some stuff about Japan and like my art and whatnot. So I don't know, let me know what you guys think. Anyways, so today's topic is going to manga school in Japan. And first off, I just want to apologize for the lateness of getting this up because, well, I really want to be better about it. I want to be able to get more videos up on a regular basis. It's just that this is my first year working as a game designer, and I've been working like 10 hours a day, like 5 days a week, and just not always in the right mindset or have the right amount of energy to get into making a video and setting something up. So I'm starting to get used to my life now with my new life with my new job and everything. So I may be able to figure out how to be more regular with my updates, but no real promises. I guess I could say that I'll probably update more regularly than I did in the last year, but we'll see. Anyways, so I have two questions that I received from some of my old videos, and the first one was why I'm not more popular. I think they said that they liked my art style or whatnot, and they were surprised that I didn't have more viewers or whatnot, or subscribers. And well, the simple answer to that is that I'm just not regular enough. I don't update regularly, and maybe if I did really get to doing this on a regular basis, it probably would catch more fire and be more subscribers and so forth. But I have other things going on as well, so you just take subscribers where you get them. And so yeah, if you enjoy my videos, that's good enough for me. I don't need to have a huge base, just as long as there's some people that are being helped by the stuff that I'm putting out there. So the next question was, someone asked if they'd like to hear more about how I got a job as a game designer. And yeah, I definitely will go into that in a future video, like in more depth and detail. But just the order of the videos has it that this video is going to be about going to school at going to the manga school. So that'll be the first topic. But just in as a quick answer, I could say that I studied manga at a school in Japan for 2 years, and then after that I switched for final year of game design. So I switched from manga to game. I finished my schooling with a game design as a game designer, and then I spent about 2 years searching for jobs here. So it wasn't an easy thing. I mean, it took a lot of work. Like, I went to a lot of interviews, I met a lot of people and so forth, but eventually I found the company that was fitting for the type of style that I was doing, so I was able to get the job that I'm at right now. And I'll go more into detail into that in the future. But for today, the topic is going to manga school in Japan. Alright, so let's see here. Let's see. So first off, those of you who've watched my other videos, you already know that I was living in Japan for about probably like 6 years or so before I went to the manga school. And I just came over here. I studied abroad for about half a year, and then I taught English for another few years or so. And teaching English is generally the easiest thing for you to do as an English speaker in Japan, just to be able to maintain a visa and get like a steady income and so forth. But so yeah, so then after doing that for a while, my original schooling in America was in fine arts, and I really liked being in Japan and learning Japanese, and that's just not something that's really that valued as an English teacher, because as an English teacher you basically just speak English all the time. So I felt like, yeah, I want to get back to my roots, and I want to like do manga or do something in an artistic field. And particularly I liked manga because of the ability to make your own story, and to also to do your own like graphics and stuff for the visual side of things. And it just seemed really appealing to me. Plus the ability to use Japanese on a more regular basis also was appealing. So I went ahead and I started looking around for manga schools, and in Japanese it's called a senmon gakko. I'm not completely sure how you translate into English. I'm guessing it might be like a vocational school or something along there. But it's not exactly a college, but it's like in the place of college you would go to that to specifically focus on getting a job as a mangaka or like as a designer or so forth. So I went to what they call Taiken Nyugaku, which is like an open house. So I just went around and I looked for a whole bunch of Taiken Nyugakus. I just searched it up on Google, and found various different schools that were doing these open houses around Tokyo, and I went to all of those that I could. And then I went ahead and I traveled over to Osaka, and I like spent like a week there just like crashing in internet cafes and stuff, and going around to all the different Taiken Nyugakus in Osaka. And it was it was a cool experience, I'd say, because like you have how you say it, because you get to get like a preview of what a class would be like at that school. They also like explain to you a lot about like the manga industry and what's like studying manga and so forth. Things that like I didn't really know going in, so like it was like a really good learning experience. And then you get to like actually like have like a lesson where they'll teach you how to draw certain things or something. You get like have a preview into like what it would be like going to that school. And of course, this is all in Japanese. So I know that some people may ask like, I need to know Japanese to study manga in Japan? And the short and simple answer to that is yes. I imagine I can't say for sure that there isn't any school in Japan that will like cater to an English speaker, but I think as far as I saw, they all are in Japanese, and they're not gonna get a translator to like sit next to you in class or anything. So yeah, you have to learn Japanese. So that's probably the first step if you want to study manga in Japan. I mean, you could probably, and just in general, like you're gonna have more resources at your disposal to learn from if you know the language. It's not necessarily an easy thing, but like for me, I was in Japan for about 6 years prior to going to the school, so I had more than enough time to really get fluent with the language. And I think anyone really can get fluent with the language if you're really dedicated to it. It's very different than English, so it's a little bit tough to figure out at first, but you can definitely, if you really want to learn and you put the hours into it, I mean, you can do it. You just have to be dedicated to it. Some people have to go to school to learn. Other people can learn on their own. I was part of the side that was able to learn on my own. I pretty much just worked in Japan and then studied on my free time, and I was able to learn it. But not everyone can do that. Not everyone has the motivation. If you're not really a self-motivated person, you may need to go to school and have people giving you homework every day to make sure that you're actually like progressing. But even then, like the schools sometimes, if you go to like a school that has Koreans and like Chinese and like other like Asian people from different parts of Asia, it's probably going to be a lot more intensive. So that might actually be a good way to learn the language. But a lot of the schools that are catered to like Americans or like sort of Western speakers, they often take it easy because they understand that a lot of people, they aren't really honestly, it's not as important for most Westerners to learn Japanese because you can kind of live in Japan without knowing more than basic conversational Japanese. Just basically knowing how to order things at stores and stuff. You'd be okay with that because there are people that speak English and you could get by there. But if you're wanting to be a manga artist, that's a whole different story because when you go into that industry, everyone speaks Japanese and no one wants to like really speak English. No one wants to like go through the trouble of trying to like make special arrangements for you if you can't speak Japanese. So it may be a good idea to not go to one of the Western catering schools, but maybe just more of like a more international school that has a lot of like Asians, Koreans, like Chinese, and other people who really are like trying to master the language in a couple years or so, because that will kind of like push you a lot more. But that's enough about the language. The other thing was the cost I had to consider, because it's not exactly cheap. Let's see here. The school I went to cost about $10,000 a year, and I was there for 3 years. So it cost me $30,000. It's roughly, I think, like 3 million yen. I think I can't remember exactly, but yeah, it cost me a lot of money. So I had the benefit of being able to save money for the 6 years before I applied for the school. I was able to get a pretty good savings. I actually had enough in my savings for 2 years. I ended up going there for 3 years, which made it kind of tough toward the end, and I had to take a lot of part-time jobs, and it was really tough, like trying to have the time to put in to make a good portfolio, to make manga, to go and meet different publishers, and also have a part-time job at the same time. Like, there was many days like not eating much, just like having rice and like some raw eggs that I put on top of the rice or something. And yeah, it was definitely a trying period in my life. But I learned a lot from it. I learned how to live simply, and yeah, I'm kind of glad that I went through it in a way, even though it was really tough while I was in it. But yeah, so you may want to try to make sure that you have arrangements for how you're going to be able to pay for your living and also pay for the school, because yeah, just even if the school's 10,000, that's just the school. You still have to pay for your living arrangements. You're still going to have to pay for rent and other things like that. And I could go into those types of things if you need me to, but I think there's a lot of other YouTubers who talk about the basic logistics of living in Japan, and I think maybe my niche is that I'm more focused on the experience of learning manga and being in the creative fields here, and also in like the gaming industry and so forth. So kind of try to focus on that end of things. But yep, so I went around to numerous schools. One thing you might have to one thing trap that I fell into is that the school I was most impressed with, and I'm probably not, I don't know if I want to say their name, but like their Taiken Yungaku was really great. Their open houses was really great compared to all the others. They had probably the best. But I found out later that the reason they had the best is because they put most of their money into the advertising area of things. So they're really big on advertising their school and getting people into the school. And then once you're in, they didn't really have quite as much going on. So you might want to be careful not to be deceived by that. Try to like really research what the school is going to be like when you're actually in there. Talk to other people who have been to the school. I mean, I talked to some people that went to that school that I was mentioning, and they told me like, yeah, that the school it's not really that great once you get into it. They said basically like they don't really take care to make sure that you get a job or anything. They don't really they just kind of leave you and just kind of leave you on your own to kind of figure things out. So that was the school that I went to, and so like I think I was still able to succeed because I was really self-motivated and I really put a lot of pressure on myself. But honestly, in the school, I was surprised how little pressure the actual teachers really put on you, and like how like a lot of students just wouldn't do their homework, and like they allowed students to get by just like, for example, a student wouldn't do any homework for the whole semester or whatever, and then when they're failing the class, the teacher would say, okay, do this one makeup assignment so that I can give you a D or whatever the passing grade was. And then the student would just do the one makeup assignment, and then he'd pass the class. And a lot of kids actually like took advantage of that, and they would just hang out with their friends and play video games all the time and stuff. And it was actually kind of surprising, because I had the impression that everyone who went to the school was going to be like really dedicated to trying to become manga artists, right? But it turns out that a lot of the people that go to these schools actually, they just don't really like school, and they think like, oh, if I go to like this like manga school, then it'll be easier, so I'll just go there. And then, but they're just generally lazy people to begin with, so they don't really put in the effort to actually become manga artists. And so I'd have to say that probably from my graduating class, I think maybe like a handful of people actually went on to do stuff in manga or in a creative field of some sort. I knew, let's see, I went to the gaming field. Another friend of mine, he debuted at I think it was a Gangan Joker. I don't know if he continued to do a series or not, but I'm pretty sure he got one of his things published. And there was another girl who got one of her things published, and she was a really hard worker, so I'm pretty sure she'll probably get a series if she hasn't gotten one already. Yeah, but then for most of everyone else was just like they just ended up like working at convenience stores or like like arcades or just like really random areas. And it was just kind of interesting seeing that. So like even though it was in a school, it still felt like you had to be really self-motivated to get yourself going. So that leads me to the next question: is it really worth it to go to this school? And so let's see, how can I answer that? Well, for me, I think it probably wasn't necessary for me to have gone to the school because I ended up going to gaming, and I think for gaming you kind of it was more important to have that schooling so that you could get into the get the interviews and stuff for different companies and stuff. But for manga, it honestly I don't think it really mattered if you had gone to school or not. So basically, in my experience, the first year I learned all the basics about like how to draw manga, and I started drawing my own manga. And after I had like a couple pages, like I don't know, a couple like 30-40 pages under my belt, then I started going to in my second year I started going to different publishers, and they call it mochikomi. Like you just take your manga into different publishers and you show them your work, and they'll tell you if they like it or if they don't like it and why they like it or why they don't like it. And if they really like it, they'll probably give you their business card, and you could keep in touch with them. And they serve what they call a tanto. I guess it's like your manager, right? And then that person would be someone that remains in contact with you over a long period of time and tries to work with you to get you to make a manga that you could hand in to different like competitions and stuff, and maybe eventually get published. And so where was I going with that? Yeah, so I started doing that in my second year, and I actually found that I learned a lot more from just going to the publishers directly than I learned from the school. The school just ended up being like a place to hang out, to meet friends, and like and to I don't know, have like a place to kind of do some work to do my work at. But in terms of learning, like yeah, after the second year, it started feeling like I didn't like I admit I learned a lot in the first year, but after that, it seemed like I didn't really need to be at the school anymore. So I guess for my suggestion might be, if you could just go to like a 1-year school, that might be better than doing like 2-3 years. The school that I went to, they tried to sell it to you, saying like 3 years is better because you'll get more experience, you'll be able to do more of this or that. But honestly, like the last two years, well, I only went there for 2, but some of my friends went there for 3, and the last 2 years it seemed like the school is just like a place that you hang out. It like really loses most of its value after the first year or so. I would suggest trying to go as short as possible, and then after that just focus on going directly to the publishers. I mean, this may be if you can't motivate yourself to go to publishers, then maybe you might need to be in the school longer. But I mean, if you can't motivate yourself to go to publishers, then you probably aren't really going to make it in that industry anyways. So, yep. So that's my advice. Or the other thing is, if you don't want to go to school at all, it's also possible to skip school and just go directly to publishers. Because this is probably the most valuable thing I learned in the school. It's to get to the publisher, all you have to do is give them a call. Their phone number is written on the magazines in Japan. I don't know if you could get yeah, you probably couldn't call them outside of Japan, but anyways, they have their phone number on the magazine. You just look on the back cover or like in the inside cover or something like that, and it will have like a number for calling for Mochikomi. I wonder if I have a magazine here. No, I don't. But maybe I'll look that up later. But yeah, so you look at the phone, you find the phone number, and then you just give them a call, and you tell them like you want to mochikomi, like manga no mochikomi shitai desu kedomo, like I want to bring my manga in, and then you'll tell them your name and like how many pages your manga is. So like they'll ask you like how long the manga is. You can't bring in really anything too huge in. You want to bring in something from at least 16 pages, but probably not much more than 50 pages. I think 32, 46, that ended up being a good number for me. 16 is kind of hard for them to really get an idea of your ability to write a story, But if you write like 50 or 60 or 70 or so, they're not going to really be interested in reading all that. So because especially like they don't know who you are, they're not that interested in reading a whole long drawn out thing. They want to see like a really quick short example that they could just sit down in front of you and read it in like maybe 5-10 minutes and get an idea of what your ability is. So yeah, you just call them, you make a date, and then you go directly to the publisher. You tell them that you have an appointment. You go in and you meet the person, and that was like the best learning experience ever after I started doing that. Of course, though, you still need to learn the language because they aren't going to have translators at the publishers for you. I mean, there may be some really rare examples. Like, I mean, you may know some people on YouTube. I've seen some people on YouTube who started doing manga in Japan after being successful abroad, and in those cases, they may make special arrangements for them. But that's because they already know that this person is selling comics outside of Japan, so they know that there's some value to bringing that person into their company. If you're someone who's never published before, or like maybe, I don't know, even self-publishing is still kind of iffy. Like but basically, yeah, if you don't have like that sort of like following behind you already, they're probably not going to be willing to make special arrangements for you. So that means that you're going to have to be able to speak Japanese, or maybe you could bring someone else in with you. Although they may kind of look weird. They may kind of think that's kind of weird. But I mean, you could try it if you just can't speak the language. At the very least, your manga has to be in Japanese. You know, they're not going to read it in English. They're not judging you just on how good your drawings are. They're judging you on the story, the content, and a whole bunch of other things, which I'll start going into future videos as I talk about what I learned in the actual school. But yeah, so that's the basics of how I got into the manga school. The only other thing is in terms of language of how much you have to learn. I'd say the Japanese Nikkyu, the Japanese language proficiency test, level 2. If you get that much, you're probably good to go. Level 1 is also nice to have, but honestly, you don't really need level 1. It's more work than it's really worth. I think level 2 is generally going to be enough. And I took like a short test to get into the school after I had the level 2 test for my application, and then before entering the school they gave me another short like Japanese test, and you know, it wasn't too hard. It's probably about the same level as like a level 2 JLPT, Japanese language proficiency test, but a lot shorter. So it only took like an hour or something. And they also had an interview too, so they had me talk about like what I wanted to do and so forth. And it actually was at that interview where they first told me that I should probably consider gaming, because they took a look at my art and they could tell that my art was probably more suited for the gaming industry than for manga. But I ended up doing manga first anyways, just to give it a try. And that's about all there. I'll try to go into more details in the future. Sorry for talking so fast. There's just so much stuff to like get into this short amount of time, and I don't want to make this too long. So let me know any questions or comments you may have, and I'll try to include those in the future videos. And I think so the next time I may start talking about some of the things that I did during class. I think I'd like to show you the first manga I drew. It's just a 4-page manga that we did. It was our first assignment in the school, and so I'll try to bring that. I'll get a commentary on that for our next video. All right, till next time. Yoroshiku.